So I've been doing a bit of the old internet perusing as of late, and I've had some thoughts about this discourse that's been going on. The discourse, of course, being what is media literacy and who has it? Is it woke? Philosophers are divided on the topic. Now, I should make it clear that I am very obviously media illiterate, but over the course of this essay, I hope to convince you that I am in fact very smart, with an IQ only matched by what the internet has told me Einstein possesses. However, I think I know what you're all talking about, or at least one aspect of it. So that's what this is about. Maybe one or two, we'll get through to it. But bear with me. Why are the curtains blue? Curtains are blue because blue is a colour that exists. You know, the author picked it arbitrarily from the multitudes that exist. You know, he likes blue. You know, blueberries, bluebirds, blue skies. But no! Do not stop there, media illiterate scum, says my English teacher in year 10, Mrs. Smith. We can do an interpret here, right? The curtains are blue because blue is a common metaphoric icon in the English language for sadness and melancholy. And the author, rather than just simply stating the character was sad, says the curtains are blue to abstract it a layer. He's abstracting the meaning into a metaphor by at least one layer. Take note on that, because that's kind of the entire point of this section. Anyway, third pass. Mrs. Smith, the curtains are just blue. Stop being a schizo, you schizo. And we don't even have to just stop there. Fourth pass, the author was in fact just pointing at the conflict currently going on X.com. Current, you know, as of a few years ago, I just, wanted to talk about this, I guess. Let's do a side-by-side with a famous example. Which of these three phrases, I'm going to put them on the screen, which of these phrases to you seems more artistic or beautiful or evocative or whatever your standard is for what you think good art is? Number one, I love Juliet as she treats me with kindness and brings me great joy. How nice. Thanks, Romeo. Example number two, Julia is the light of my life and treats me with warmness. And example three, and you knew it was coming, folks, Juliet is the sun. Ah. Anyway, not only is the choice that Shakespeare actually made more succinct, thus making it easier to understand, but it's also more evocative, right? It's better, right? It's Juliet is the sun, whatever. We're not going to get into this. It's better than what I wrote, right? I just wrote those in an afternoon when I was writing the script for this. They're not very good. Why is that? Why are they not very good? It's because I'm shit, but why am I shit? You know what I mean? I think a large part of the reason here is abstraction. Look back to the examples just provided, right? In each example, I abstract a layer further. I add a layer of, I add a layer of mystery or something in between each. The first example, Romeo is just propositionally stating how he feels. I like her. Brilliant. That's great, mate. Happy for you. Second is then abstracting those statements into metaphors. And then the third is then abstracting it even further into a warm light object, the sun. Very nice. I feel like this probably doesn't need to be said, but I'm really trying to walk through. Okay then. So, why are the curtains blue? I don't know, mate, but I'm just kind of trying to illustrate why this is going on, right? This first case, people are assuming that the thing is abstracted, therefore looking into it. But there's a deeper point here of the fact that this conflict has happened and it's schismed in the way that it has implies that abstraction thing that I'm illustrating here is probably one of the things which art holes like myself think of as producing quality in art, let's say. Who is correct on this one? I don't know, but let's apply my formula to illustrate further. Number one, character is sad. Number two, character is blue. Number three, curtains are blue. You get the point. So that abstraction thing there is what is being implied to have happened in the case of the curtains being blue example, right? However, according to Guy 2, as we will henceforth refer to him, this is not what's going on, right? There is no need for us to read into it in this manner. It was purely arbitrary choice, whatever. We illustrate in this first bit. And, Guy 2 could be correct, But he's kind of correct in the way that, like, a new atheist is correct at his grandma's funeral. Like, yeah, cool, mate. God not real, but also you're sort of making the world less enjoyable in this sense. Now, is there something to be said for it actually degrading the experience of other people? Um, Absolutely. I mean, in my case, I am degrading experiences for people, brother. You could even see if you were in the pub with this guy, him going like, "Listen, mate, I just watch films and read books for fun. I don't need all this academic interpretation. Who's to say your interpretation is even right anyway, right? I just want to enjoy the art as it is." But yeah, he's probably right. Like, I'm not in the realist school of many things, let alone aesthetics. So what is the point of art past just basic sensory pleasure? And if I'm getting pleasure from interpreting stuff and looking into the meaning of the art, and he's getting pleasure from just going, curtain is blue, and I like blue, then who's to say that I'm right? Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing ultimately. Okay, but providing that guy 2 here is just simply correct, why do things like guilty pleasures exist? That is an unintelligible concept if the entire thing that makes art of quality is just sensory enjoyment, right? Because what a guilty pleasure is, you're effectively saying, I like this, but I feel bad about liking it. What are you feeling bad about, right? Providing it's not like Hitler's paintings pre 1930, right? What are you actually feeling bad about? I mean, a guilty pleasure could be just a toxic inability to enjoy things that are not seen as cool or whatever. But I think that feeling kind of points to something a bit deeper, right? Maybe, Guy 2, you're a stinky decadent. Or more succinctly here, why does it feel like there is something more of quality or better about Everywhere at the End of Time versus Britney Spears?
It's Britney, bitch.
It's abstraction. That was the entire point of the first section. I would actually go so far as to say that I actually enjoy Britney Spears more than I enjoy Everywhere at the End of Time. I mean, obviously, because it's like a nice, aesthetically pleasing thing versus the 6-hour hellscape of Everywhere at the End of Time. But even just on like a basic level, just I would listen to it more, right? And I probably would put it on in the car for more people. I mean, my Spotify watch time definitely agrees with this. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be listening to track 12 of Everywhere at the End of Time on my commute to work. To illustrate what I mean by abstraction in this context, what is Baby One More Time talking about? Probably. I haven't done a full looking into the meaning of the song, but probably what it's saying is, help me, I am very lonely. Please someone save me from my loneliness. Fucking hell, I'm lonely. Understandable meaning, perfectly fine. We've all felt lonely. Brilliant. You know, great song. And they do it in a funky little pop song, dude. Boop, 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 boop. I haven't even on about that. And then, what is the caretaker saying? So obviously, it's about dementia. But then, in the actual piece itself, there isn't lyrics. So they're not... It's first of all abstracted in that sense, that it's not actually talking about anything. But then what can we glean from it, right? Well, there's references to all the music there, like early 20th century big band and doo-wop style music. So we know that it's probably an old person. Obviously, dementia mainly affects old people as well, so we know that. How is he conveying the effects of dementia through the art, right? He's, using themes and then disjointing them, immediately interrupting them, much like what you would imagine the effects of dementia being, of losing trains of thought and forgetting things. I mean, the runtime itself kind of works as an artistic choice too, because it's like representing the slow effect of dementia as it degrades the person's mind over time. Happy themes are introduced that are then just cataclysmically destroyed. It's very effective in that sense. You really don't have much to latch onto. And by the end of the piece, it just sort of culminates in total noise, meaning collapse, and, it's quite sad, really. Dementia is sad. Hot take. Okay, so what are they saying? I mean, fundamentally, it's probably just trying to capture the effects of dementia in music. But I can Google that, right? I can go on the NHS website right now and Google effects of Alzheimer's disease or effects of dementia, and it'll list all of the effects that are documented. I could go speak to family members who have experienced it, and then I can build up a picture of what the effects are. But he didn't do that, right? He captured the effects in the medium itself. Instead of just saying, this person has dementia and they are old and they are slowly dying from dementia, he says, look, here is a piece of art that I am trying to capture what that could feel like and representing that thing in it. And now, experience. Go ahead. I mean, to be clear here, right? All of this that I've just talked about here, it's not original, but this has been pulled out of what effectively is a jumbled mix of old-timey style music with vinyl distortion put on it. And it's captured the effects of a very devastating and complex disease. Good art, I'd say. Let's do a more cheery example, to illustrate this old abstraction thing. If you're like 9 years old and you go down to your parents' wine cupboard and you sneak a sip of the old rouge, what am I on about? Okay, if you're a child and you go and try red wine for the first time, it's disgusting, right? It tastes like what it is, rotting grapes.
Do you like it?
Tastes like it has turned.
Yes, fermentation.
Okay, so why then can I and a bunch of French guys not get enough of this bottle of fermented Capri Sun? It's abstraction again. That was the point again. It was abstraction. Oh, this one tastes like chocolate. The fuck it does, right? It tastes a bit like chocolate. It has notes of chocolate. That's what that means. Why would we not just eat the chocolate, though? We could just eat the chocolate and have the chocolate experience. Partially, as I referenced in the beginning, we probably do this because it's enjoyable to discuss. However, it's also that there's something to this experience of it's a bit shit, then a bit good again, then it's a bit shit, then, oh, that's a bit weird. It's like an experiential thing. You get to go on this roller coaster of flavour experience.
Oh, Cousteau was right. Oh, yeah.
There's obviously some room here as well, probably, to tell stories through wine. As much as it's probably just marketing for the wine industry. I mean, it's not something I've engaged with personally, but I would believe it, given the fact that they all taste very, very different. And it's sort of treated with a deference that would allow you to do that. Wine is contextually given the space to tell stories, let's say. Fundamentally, though, it does feel a bit ridiculous to compare the notes of a bag of Haribo's versus red wine. Now, obviously, there's Marxist analysis here of like, who is the fanciest of them all? A bunch of French kings drank it, so now it's cool. And that probably is broadly true, now that I think about it. But for the point of this video, I think a large part of the reason is that with a bag of Haribo's, not only is it sort of an industrialized product, so they're all sort of the same, providing you don't go to different countries, etc. But also, they're kind of just what they are. Like, there's not... all the flavors kind of make sense. They're all sort of lining up. It's sort of just a product that has been designed to hack the human ape brain into just consuming more of it. For example, this. Someone had to design this, obviously, and this is like had a lot of research and development put into it. Like, there'll be like flavor testings and stuff at Monster Energy HQ. There'll be some guy who's designed all the packaging. The can, obviously, itself is pretty much a marvel of engineering. But we don't see this as art somehow. I mean, obviously, you would call someone a graphic artist for doing the can. But this is not afforded the same level of respect as red wine. And I don't think it's just as simple as, well, French kings liked it, as aforementioned. I think there is something to the idea of this is effectively just a thing that's designed to make it taste as good as possible in a very sort of naive sense. For the sake of this argument, bags of Haribo's and Monster Energy drinks are less abstracted in the sense that the flavour profile is very easily understood immediately, whereas something like red wine requires sort of a bit of experience to understand it. The pleasure isn't immediately obvious where it's derived from, and thus it's seen as sort of more artistic. So basically, gatekeeping is based. But yeah, to defend the art holes in this, right, does Guy 2 actually understand, in the case of these discussions, that sometimes to understand a piece of work, you actually need to have requisite experience and expertise in that phenomena? It does really wind me up the extent to which people mistake their lack of understanding of a certain art form or style as it just being shit. You know what I mean? So, like, I quite like heavier styles of music, like your heavy metal type thing, a lot of screaminess. And it's very common for people in the north of England to sort of go, that's just noise, it doesn't make any sense. Because to them, it is all the same, right? They don't know the differences between, let's say, death metal and metalcore, as all the Redditors would like to debate. And not to say that that is the reason that I like heavy music. It's just to say that it's evidence of the fact that they aren't engaging with it in the way that is required to enjoy it. You see this sort of effect a lot with abstract impressionism. You know, that's not art. It's just anyone could do that. It's splatters of paint on a canvas. And rather than them going, well, maybe I don't understand this, they go, that's stupid. You know, I really dislike this. A bunch of unwashed shirtless guys barging around in a room is not done based on pretense, right? In the same way that someone who's just tried beer for the first time can't appreciate the nuanced differences between India Pale Ale and New England Pale Ale, maybe you don't understand why someone would find that appealing. It's sort of like they don't have the relevant experience to understand why someone would enjoy a Texan man shouting at them in a very dimly lit room. To be clear, I am really stretching what this hypothetical Guy 2 and the wider internet discourse about this media literacy thing is even about at this point. Really a straw man if ever I've seen one. But ultimately, right, Guy 2 is correct to an extent still, right? Like, what actually is the difference here between some guy who has a lot of experience with red wine and can differentiate the differences between them and thus derive higher aesthetic enjoyment from it versus the Monster Energy drink enjoyer, right? I mean, sometimes, obviously, art can have a wider societal or ethical goal in mind. The idea that the caretaker here might have wanted to bring attention to dementia because he had a loved one that he lost to dementia and he wants to, you know, raise awareness of how horrible the disease is. Often, though, there still isn't like a wider ethical or societal goal in mind. And even then, I'd probably say that you're going to be an anti-realist about that. So it doesn't really help us to bring it into the ethical realm too much. This sort of good or more abstracted art actually isn't more pleasurable most of the time. It's actually actively painful to watch sometimes. Like in the example that I said earlier, right? The caretakers everywhere at the end of time is not more pleasurable. It's actually actively unpleasurable. So then what is it then that actually makes those things better in that context, right? I would say it's probably what the ancient Greeks would have termed eudaimonia. Truly a video essay. You know, eudaimonia being this idea of like what provides sort of meaningfulness, this feeling of fulfillment. So think like someone having a child, right? It's not actually enjoyable, but it is enjoyable in this like sort of more meaningful way. And I do think that's an important distinction, right? I genuinely do live my life by this idea of going towards things that are more sort of eudaimonic than things that are more basally pleasurable. It is fundamentally better for you in the long run, I think, to go after eudaimonic things. And much like in the curtains being blue example, to simply just look at art as an excuse to be like, this is a thing just to provide me pleasure. This does not have any other meaning. That can be true and is often true, but actually probably serves you worse from like a psychological perspective and of a way of understanding the world. But, and I hate to agree with Guy 2 again, I do think we're still probably back at hedonism here. It's probably a more Epicurean form of hedonism, and as I said, I will defend this distinction. But it is probably still pleasure-seeking, just in a more Greek way. That's not a thing you want to be doing. Yeah, so the entire point of this section was really just to say, have some empathy, right? If you're the kind of person like me who likes analysing art and likes to look into the themes and what's actually being said by the artist in each piece that they experience, try to have some empathy for the person who just wants to experience things in a sort of carnal manner, right? Because when we actually get down to brass tacks, we're kind of doing the same thing. It's just I'm just going around in circles before I do it. I'm really quite Catholic, right? I'm like, hold off my pleasure. Don't give it me straight away. Make me work for it, Daddy. We could just put up an A-frame and call it a day. But instead, I want a bit of embossing. Whack up those Ionian columns. Give it a lick of paint, lad. Welcome back. Musicals are cringe, right? You know, and I like them, you know. Musicals are great fun. And so do lots of people whose opinions I respect. I might regret putting this on the internet. You know the kind of guy where you set them up for a joke at your expense, and then they clutch it out of the air and go, "Ah, you fucking," and then they bash you over the head with it. Hopefully. Well, that's what I felt like recently during a performance of hit musical Hades Town. Hades Town. Now, that musical performance in question was, in fact, the trigger for this entire thought process. And I should probably just say this before we start. I am setting all of this up to show how I'm wrong. It is a very good show. I would recommend going and watching it. I am just a horrible person. And it could be a me problem. Or is it? But I think it's probably a me problem. In the beginning, when we were introduced to Eurydice and Orpheus, it's very explicitly stated the kind of characters they are. And I've got the quote here. Eurydice was a hungry girl, a runaway from everywhere she'd ever been. She was no stranger to the world, no stranger to the wind. And then later in the song, everybody's a fair weather friend. In the end, you're better off alone. Anyway the wind blows. And I will say, before we get into this further, I absolutely love in this song the usage of wind to describe sort of suffering and chaos in the world. Great choice. But we get the point, guys. Eurydice is jaded as fuck. And then later in the song, Hermes introduces Orpheus. He wore his heart out on his sleeve. You might say he was naive to the ways of the world. And then later, and I'd like to hear him sing and his way of seeing things. So I took him underneath my wing. And that's where he stayed. Anyway, just a bit of a detail here that I also like. The usage of under my wing here. Seeing as Hermes in mythology is depicted as having winged boots, as the messenger god, etc., you could interpret this as under my boot, under the thumb, whatever, beaten down. It could be intentional. If it isn't, then, it's still a nice little detail. It probably is intentional, though, given the amount of research you'd have to do to write this. So, big up Anais Mitchell. So we all get this, right? So why then, throughout the show, multiple times, are we introduced to this fact over and over again? Insert compilation.
Ain't nobody gonna stick around. Oh, a liar and a player too. I be what they are. Hard and getting harder all the time. We need firewood. I was alone so long. I didn't even know that I was lonely. Who are you?
The man who's gonna marry you. Love her when I sing my song. All the rivers will sing along.
Oh boy, working on a sound.
Orpheus.
Young girl looking for something to eat. With his heart out on his seat.
Orpheus, please, we should go.
I'm not going back alone. Is this how the world is?
I should also say, the later passages here aren't strictly just saying this again. They're introducing other things. They're getting married, or we're falling deeper in love, etc. It just sort of feels like, remember that guy Orpheus? Yeah, the guy who thinks like this and has these opinions of these things. Yeah, Orpheus, that guy. Orpheus, yeah, him. He is doing this now, and here's some further plot points. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like it probably didn't need to be done, so there we are. My toxic trait is sort of every single time I see a piece of art that describes something that has been described before, which is pretty much all of it, I sort of go, no, I do not like that. I do not like that. Or much like, it's not that I wouldn't like it, much like in the verse section, when I describe guilty pleasures, I would leave reading it as a guilty pleasure. Like, I wouldn't be like, I am a big fan of this. You know what I mean? I genuinely left the theatre after watching Hades Town thinking of it as a guilty pleasure, which is absolutely ridiculous compared to how much people online seem to have liked it. And this right here, right, is sort of the entire point of this section. If a theme or archetype or message or whatever is very common, you probably don't need to like worry about people not getting it, right? You can get away with abstracting more and more. Like it's sort of like this effect of how people will see faces and everything. You know, the human brain is sort of wired to detect that, but also it's because you see faces all the time. You know, so it's like if you've met the jaded cynic, Eurydice, or the sort of revolutionary artistic type in Orpheus, you probably don't need that much information to detect the type that she is trying to convey, she being Anais Mitchell in this case. It's sort of why every fucker in the Western music tradition references Orpheus, and Orpheus actually exists as a concept at all, which is sort of one of the things that the musical is kind of talking about, is this sort of power of music, etc. Partly probably what I actually am detecting an aversion to here is not simply just that the references are trite, it's that the references are trite and that they're like being hammered home. It's kind of like over-explaining something. Mansplaining. Mansplaining, viewer. I am being mansplained too. You know, it's actually quite necessary sometimes to be very explicit in your sort of conveying of messages in art. Like if you have some like esoteric theme or meaning, it is quite difficult to get that across. So you want to make it explicit. This is not a thing, by the way, unique to Hadestown. This is just sort of a thing with musicals as a medium generally, and obviously pop culture widely. Due to it having to be for a wider audience, they do have to sort of account for different levels of media literacy, let's say. Okay, so we knew where this was going really, right? In the previous section, I set up this entire thing about, oh, I'm so media literate, and now I'm going to deconstruct it, obviously. So what is fundamentally wrong with using trite themes? Or alternative title to this section, let my homies make love songs. All art necessarily has to reference things. This is sort of unavoidable, whether it's abstracted or not, or otherwise. It just sort of, the book has to stop somewhere, you know. So like if I was going to write something and be like, oh, you know, like when the sky turns hot pink and dualistic Barbie Kens fall from the sky in a manner similar to the 8th plague of Egypt. No, mate. No, I don't know what you're on about. What the fuck are you even talking about there? Like, it has to reference something. And even in that stupid example I just came up with there, that's still referencing things, right? It's referencing Barbie or whatever and, like, the Bible. So is it, even in my absurd example, it's still referencing things. I could even try and use a reference to nothing. You know, for example, oh, do you know about flute florps? And even in that example, I'm sort of referencing this sort of millennial Rick and Morty style nonsense word, right? It wasn't like I just came up with anything there. I intentionally picked something that kind of was in the realm of nonsense word. Or more specifically, to steal an idea from CJ the X that they stole from Derek Guy, you aren't being clever by making art that references nothing. Art in this context would be fashion. That is the video I'm talking about. You aren't being clever by not referencing anything culturally. You're actually just being a bad artist. So sort of make a reference that's easily understood, mate, or piss off, yeah? Or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Anyway, I would go so far as to say, I don't think it's just that we're biasing novelty of theme unjustly here. It's actually that the reverse is true. The fact that a theme is more commonly understood or trite or whatever is evidence that it is actually talking about a fundamentally more real experience. Like, is the experience of falling in love trivial, or drinking water, or eating food, or whatever? All of these things are fundamental to the human experience. So if I was going to write a song about it, a love song, let's say, it would be a bit silly to say, oh, God, as if someone would talk about that. Like, yeah, obviously you would talk about that, because they're some of the most intense experiences that humans can experience, I guess. You know, these things are not trivial experiences. Neither is sort of wisdom that gets expressed in lots of art forms that works and has been proven to work over time, or common archetypes that you see across cultures, ideas of like the mother or heroes or something like that. They get used a lot because they're meaningful and useful, right? Like, but what is more real, right? Tom York warbling about how disassociating and depressing it is being a touring musician, or Taylor Swift making the 45th breakup song this year. And just to be clear, when I say all this, I am a sucker for some Tom York warbling or some Taylor Swift All Too Well from the Vault 10-minute version live from an arena near you. But judging by her fans and what I've been told by them, I do feel that she's probably talking way more to a common femme-coded experience. At least lyrically, right? Like, lyrically, Taylor Swift is probably talking more about what those people feel is true than, you know, Tom York talking about that. And not to say that he doesn't, right? OK Computer is very much a cubicle film. OK Computer is a cubicle film. That is what we're going with now, eh? Okay, right. But sometimes, Guy 2, remember him? Guy 2 genuinely sometimes doesn't actually get these themes, to the extent to which it actually beggars belief at times. For example, advertising. Like, how does advertising work? Like, genuinely, sometimes it's on the level of, you are gay if you don't buy this. Like, it is unbelievably obvious what it's trying to do. So how does it work? Potentially, and this is likely true to some extent, people do see what it's doing, and it just, by some sort of osmosis into the human psyche, like Inception style, you know. In fact, it can't even be Inception style because it's so obvious. Like, the entire point of the film Inception was that you had to pretend that it was their own thought. But yeah, I do think that the best explanation a lot of time is that people just aren't engaging with the message that they're trying to say, or realise the extent to which these things are being manufactured. Okay, right. If not, explain this, right? Okay, firstly, marketing classic, generating a problem that didn't exist before, thus you can sell them the solution. Truly, a classic if ever I've seen it. But also, like, this might become a thing, right? The idea of, like, skincare for specific areas of the body. Like, the skincare industry already got us with the face wash versus body wash thing, right? And I am told that this might have some dermatological basis. I'm dubious, though. But yeah, like, this advert is, like, nearly on the level of, people will suck your dick if you buy this. Like, it's like, how do people even, like, how does it, like, it genuinely, how does this work?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
But yeah, this is actually broadly where the frustration of the art whores will come from, which is that, much like in the example from before of the red wine, they might not have the relevant cultural data to understand what is being pointed at there. Or maybe they do, and I'm just delusional. I am so smart. And I think that right there is sort of why the instinct exists in the first place, of the sort of feeling that, like, a theme that wouldn't be as easily understood, which is conveyed to you, not only is there this effective feeling personally addressed by it, it sort of strokes the ego of the critic a bit. I mean, over the course of this video, I played the beginner's guide, which sort of calls into question this entire sort of enterprise and points at you, the viewer, as sort of identifying your ego with understanding art a bit. And, you know, that's probably true to an extent. Definitely a video for another time, so do let me know if you want me to yap about that too. In fact, I think, as stated before, it actually is the reverse. To linger on this a bit further, the 1975 recently released a song simply titled I'm in Love With You. Okay, now to give my super #media literate take on this song, I reckon that they are referencing this. This is the idea that to make the most earnest art possible would be to simply make a pop song with a very commonly used phrase about loving someone. It's just a very sincere and sort of raw expression, let's say. Somewhat ironically here, by making a very non-abstracted statement and putting it within the context of a very sort of catchy, cheesy pop song, it implies that there is a deeper meaning, right? Again, one for that video about the beginner's guide, potentially. But yeah, by doing that, they are in fact abstracting quite a bit. And much like in the example of the curtains being blue example, the point could actually not be the metaphor itself at all. It could literally be a meta-commentary on the thing itself. Anyway, roll clip.
That's your favourite lyric you've ever written, I'm in love with you.
I'm just trying to be, like, earnest and open, and you just said that my lyrics are pretentious.
I'm just saying, out of all the lyrics to pick, you've chosen I'm in love with you, which anyone could say, or any people do say that all the time.
Exactly.
So, there you go. My interpretation's correct. I'm right, you're wrong. Piss off. Okay, to summarise, abstraction good. Not only good, but sort of the point of art itself. And the curtains of blue discourse kind of points to that. Point 2. dumb fun is fine. You know, let the people have their fun. Or should we? Point 3, but Guy 2, you should probably make an effort because, like with all things in life, there are pleasures that are sort of simpler and less important, and then pleasures that will probably benefit you more in the long run. But 4, and this is fundamentally the point of this video, probably be nicer to Guy 2 because he is kind of doing the same thing that we are. I'm collectivising myself in with the media literate, but as established, I am fucking stupid. But yeah, explain things the right amount, show not tell, but, you know, if you're referencing some esoteric Soviet bloc philosopher, maybe explain what you're referencing a bit so we understand. And I still won't listen then. But just because you are referencing various esoteric themes does not, in fact, make the art better inherently. If anything, it's probably the reverse because, I don't know, Carl Jung said so, I guess. And also, it's probably talking about real shit. So yeah, if there is a thesis statement of this video at all, it's probably be nice to normies and explain things the right amount. But yeah, this was my first video, so if you like it, then do all the YouTube engagement things, like subscribe, like it, tell your friends, do subscribe if you want more of my yapping, because I plan to make a few more of these. And yeah, if you think the video's shit and that I'm super mega wrong, tell me in the comments, because I love nothing more than a good debate. Pop it in the comments and I'll probably respond to you, because I have no friends. So I also realise through making this video, the aforementioned CJ the X might have made a similar point about quality art being painful. I realised that because I watched it during making this, so I hope that's not like plagiarism or something. I hope to like sort of with these videos add to the sort of canonised tradition of yapping about art on YouTube. So hopefully I'm building off those ideas. I do hope to cite people if I reference their ideas, if I know they exist, and if nothing else, I'm deeply unoriginal, so I'll probably just cover the same ground that everyone else has done anyway. So thank you for watching.